The battlefield was quiet, too quiet. Not the quiet of peace, the quiet of exhaustion, the kind of silence that only appears after violence has finally run out of breath. Snow drifted slowly across the garden. White petals from broken trees scattered across frozen ground like forgotten prayers, and beneath them, steel, broken blades, bent spears, shattered armor. A garden that once held life had become a graveyard of iron. But the strangest thing about that morning was not the destruction. It was the smile. Because in the middle of the frozen battlefield, one warrior stood smiling, not loudly, not proudly, but softly, like someone who had already accepted something the rest of the world had not yet understood. And that smile would become the final mystery of the winter slaughter. To understand that smile, you must first understand the war that created it. This was not a normal battlefield. It was once a sanctuary, a place where kings walked in silence and poets wrote songs beneath falling blossoms. Generations had come here to escape the noise of the world. They came here to breathe, to remember who they were before swords and power twisted their lives. But peace is fragile, and when power begins to rot, even the most sacred places become battlegrounds. The winter massacre did not begin with an attack. It began with a whisper, a rumor moving quietly between kingdoms. A rumor that one man, one soldier, had become too dangerous to leave alive. He was not a king. He did not command armies. He did not rule cities. But he possessed something far more threatening: clarity. He understood the game of power. And worse, he had stopped playing it. Kings fear many things, but nothing terrifies them more than a man who no longer fears losing. Because once a man stops fearing loss, he becomes impossible to control. So the decision was made quietly. One soldier had to disappear, and the most elegant way to erase a man is to make his death look like war. So invitations were sent. Warriors from rival factions were called to the garden under the promise of negotiation, peace talks, diplomacy, an end to the long conflicts between their houses. But none of them knew they had been summoned for something else. A slaughter disguised as a meeting. The snow began falling before sunrise, thin flakes drifting through bare branches like falling ash. The garden looked peaceful, almost holy, but beneath the surface, violence was already breathing. The first warriors arrived just after dawn, armor quiet, eyes cautious, hands resting on weapons that were never meant to remain sheathed. Because every soldier in that garden understood the same truth. Peace talks rarely end peacefully. More warriors followed. From the north, from the coast, from mountain clans, men who had spent their lives mastering the art of survival, each one watching the others, each one calculating distance, movement, threat, and then he arrived, the soldier the kings wanted erased. He walked into the garden alone. No escort, no armor, only a simple blade resting at his side. His expression was calm, too calm, like a man stepping into a storm he had already seen in his dreams. The warriors watched him carefully. Some recognized him, some feared him, others underestimated him, but none of them realized the truth. He had already accepted what was coming, and when a man accepts death before the battle begins, something inside him changes. The negotiations never began. There were no speeches, no treaties, no discussions of peace. Because the moment the soldier stepped into the center of the garden, the first sword moved, Steel flashed. A blade cut through the falling snow like lightning, but the soldier moved first. Not fast, not violently, just precisely. His blade rose. One motion, one strike, one body falling into the snow. The garden erupted. What followed was not a battle, it was chaos. Warriors from every faction realize the trap at the same time. And when soldiers believe they are about to die, they become dangerous. Steel clashed. Snow turned red. Blades screamed against each other like animals fighting in the dark. Men slipped on frozen ground, spears shattered, armor cracked, and in the center of it all, the soldier moved like a ghost, not rushing, not panicking, just surviving. Every strike was efficient, every movement measured. He wasted nothing, no anger, no fear, only momentum. But something strange began to happen as the slaughter continued. The soldier started smiling, not because he enjoyed the violence, but because he understood something the others did not. The war was already over, not the battle in the garden, the larger war, the one kings had been fighting through lies and manipulation. He could see it collapsing. Because when power becomes desperate enough to erase a single soldier, it has already begun to lose control. The warriors continued fighting, but the soldier fought differently now. Not to win, not even to survive. He fought simply because movement was the only thing left to do. Hours passed. The snow stopped falling. The garden grew silent again. Bodies lay scattered across frozen earth. The last surviving warriors staggered through broken branches and fallen steel, until finally, only 2 men remained standing, the soldier and a warrior sent specifically to kill him. The assassin had watched the entire massacre without interfering, waiting, studying, learning the rhythm of the soldiers' movements. He stepped forward slowly, the final blade in a battlefield of corpses. Their fight lasted less than 30 seconds. 2 masters, 2 exhausted bodies, 2 men who understood exactly what the other was capable of. Steel flashed once, twice, 3 times. Then the assassin fell. The garden became silent again, and that is when the smile appeared. The soldier stood alone among the wreckage. Snow drifting again across broken armor, petals settling over the fallen like fragile blankets. He looked around the battlefield, not with pride, not with triumph, but with something deeper, understanding, because at that moment he realized the truth of war. War is never about the men who fight it. It is about the men who send them, and those men were far away, safe, warm, untouched by the blood now freezing across the garden floor. The soldier's smile faded slowly, not because he regretted surviving, but because he understood what survival meant. The war would continue. Kings would rebuild armies. New soldiers would replace the ones who died here. And the world would pretend none of this had happened. But for a brief moment, in the stillness of that frozen garden, one warrior saw the entire machine of violence for what it truly was. Fragile, desperate, and terrified of losing control. The soldier picked up his blade, turned away from the battlefield, and began walking out of the garden. Behind him, the winter massacre would become a legend, a story told in whispers, a mystery historians would debate for generations. But the truth of that day was simpler than anyone expected. The final smile was not the smile of victory. It was a smile of someone who had finally seen through the illusion of war. And once a man sees the illusion, He can never return to the battlefield the same way again, because the most dangerous warrior in the world is not the one who loves fighting. It is the one who finally understands why the fight exists and decides he is done being part of it